Welcome back to Namaste Node.js Season 2, and we are building Dev Tinder. So as I told you in the previous episode that we are going to use the exact method of building the project how it would have been built in the industry or in a company, right? So we will be following the same strategy. So the first part of the software development lifecycle is requirement gathering and building the product requirements. Right? And I told you in the last episode that, okay, this is the job of product manager. But over here, it's just me and it's just you. We don't have a product manager. We don't have a designer. We don't have any other person. It's just us who have to do everything. So don't you worry. We will still simulate everything how it is done in the companies. Okay, so the first step is to gather the requirements, to understand basically when I say Dev Tinder, what are we going to build? We will discuss what kind of features we want to build in this application. Then we will, once the requirement is clear, okay, once we have decided that, okay, this is Dev Tinder, we have clearly demonstrated that, okay, these are the features that we are going to build in Dev Tinder. Then we will come on to technical side and we will try to design the application. When I say design, I am talking about the design document, right? The high level design, the low level design. We will talk from the technical standpoint, right? But before that, first of all, let us clear the product requirements. Okay, let us just understand what exactly is Dev Tinder when we say, right? So Dev Tinder is basically a Tinder-like platform to make connections, but it is specifically focused for developers. Okay, so this is simple. That's it, right? People who don't know about Tinder.com, okay, let me just show it to you. And let us also take some inspiration from Tinder.com and see what good things we can pick up from their website and we can implement it on our product, okay? Because taking inspiration is no harm, isn't it? We are doing it for some educational purposes. So let's just go there, right? And take some inspiration from Tinder.com and let's just decide what are we going to build in our product, okay? So I have searched for Tinder on Google and we have got this Tinder.com. Okay, so if you go over here, you can't do anything without logging in, right? So it redirects you to a login page, right? You have to log in or you have to create an account, right? So basically either you can log in or create an account. So if I create an account, let me create an account, okay? And I am just doing a Google sign in, right? If I do a Google sign in over here, okay, it asks me for my phone number also, okay? So, so I have entered the OTP over here and if I log in, so see, first of all, it just says that, okay, I agree, it is kind of like a terms and condition kind of a thing. But now it asks you to create your profile, okay? So you cannot do anything without creating your profile. So you first have to create your profile. So you enter a lot of information, okay? So let me just enter my name, first name, okay? And then I will enter my email ID, my date of birth, okay? Let me give it as 7 March 1995, okay? And then I can select gender man, right? And then I can show the gender on my profile. Yes, why not? Interested in. Now it asks you whether you are interested in men, women, everyone. Okay, I'm interested in everyone, okay? Don't guess my preferences, right? I'm just filling it randomly. Okay, then you also talk about your interests, right? So you can add your interests. So, okay, I am a 90s kid, I am a Harry Potter fan, or I am a self-care, heavy metal and whatnot, right? You can just travel, running, right? You can just save it, right? Let's save it, right? And we have to continue, okay? So I have to upload at least 2 photos to start. So basically what we are trying to do is we are basically creating a profile. So the first thing is you basically signed up, right? You logged in using the email ID, sign up. And then once you signed up, now you have to upload 2 photos, right? So I'm uploading the photos over here. So let me just upload 2 photos. So I have uploaded 2 photos over here. And now I think I can continue. How can I continue? Did I miss anything? Looking for, okay. What I am looking for, I'm just looking for new friends, okay. Nothing else, right? Save and then continue. Okay. So once you continue, you go inside the dashboard and then it asks you for your location preferences, right? So are you from around here? Allow, okay. It asks me for the location. I am giving it the location access also. and then turn on the notification. No, I don't want to turn on the notification. Now it is showing me few cards. Okay, so now it is showing me the user profile of other people, and now I can either accept or reject, or basically I can just send them a connection request, or I can just ignore their connection request, or okay, I can ignore their profile, or I can show interest in their profile. Okay, so suppose, right, we have Jayashree over here, so I can either basically see Tinder has a culture of swipe right or swipe left. Okay, swipe right means you accept it, and swipe left means you reject it, right? So basically let us accept it, right? So we have accepted this. So there might have been an API call which would have been done right behind the scenes, and we are just seeing it for the demonstration purposes, right? That okay, we have got one more profile, we can just reject it, we can just accept it, we can just reject it, we can just accept it, and we can do it something like that, right? So this is the thing. Now if I explore other things also, right, so I can also see my matches over here, right? So when I have sent a connection request, now those people would have got a notification that somebody sent you a connection request, isn't it? Now once those people accept my connection request, right, once those people accept my connection request, now it will show up over here in my matches, right? So basically it's a match, it's a connection, it will show, all the connections will show over here, right? And over here you can also see the messages, right? If you want to chat with those people, it shows you the messages and something like that, right? And if you click on your profile, so you can go to your profile and you can just edit your information. Okay, you can edit your photos, you can edit your preferences, and you can edit your details and all that stuff, right? You can just do all of it, right? So what is your age, what is your gender, and everything is over here, right? So basically we have got an inspiration of what exactly Tinder looks like, right? So similarly, we are creating dev Tinder. It's not exactly Tinder, or it's not a dating app or something, but we want to connect with other developers. Now over here, we are not building a full-fledged application where you send your interest and this and that. Let us just build our own mini application where we will do certain things with certain features. Okay, so let us first do the requirement gathering. Let us first do the job of a product manager and define what we are going to build. Okay, basically the features which our app will have. So what features can our app have? Okay, so let me just write few features. So the first feature should be, right, what we did over there. It's basically you create your account, right? You basically create an account, right? Basically it's like sign up, right? You sign up to the platform, right? The second thing is login, or you can log in also, right? Basically this is the feature. You can either create your account or you log in if you already have an account, right? Then once you log in, basically you should be able to update your profile or create your profile. Okay, let's call this as update your profile, right? Or create your profile, it's one and the same thing, right? Basically you go to a place where you can tell your preferences, upload your photos, you can write your name, your gender, your age, or this and that, what are your interests, right? Something like that. You create your profile, and then once you have created your profile, now you go inside the application, you see a feed, right? Let's call it as a feed, right? Feed of people, right? You will see a card of somebody, right? And you can either accept or reject, right? Either you can show interest in their profile or you can ignore them, right? So basically it takes you to a feed page where you see other users. Explore, or maybe let me call it as an explore page, right? You can explore other users on the platform or explore other developers on the platform, right? And then what else feature could be there? Now once you see those profiles, you can either send them a connection request, accept, right? You can send them a request. So let's call this as send connection request, right? You can send them a connection request, or you can either, right, ignore their profile, right? You can either ignore or you can send them a request. Now then what happens is, once suppose you have sent those requests, now think from a person, just like we are sending the request, there might be other people who are sending requests to us, right? So we need a place where we can see our matches, right? We want to see a place where we can see our matches, right? See our matches, or maybe people who have accepted our connection request. Now there should also be a place, where if somebody accept my connection request or reject my connection request, there we can just see, right? Basically, see the request that we have sent. See request we have sent. So basically, I have sent the connection request to like 50 people. So can I see the list of them, that, right, what is the update on them, right? Or maybe if we have got some request, right, can I have a place where I can see my requests, right? Basically, if somebody would have right swiped my profile, they have asked us for a connection request, so there should be a place where I can see the request which I have received, right? See the request we have sent or received, right? So basically, there should be a place where we can see whom we have sent request to, where who has sent request to us, right? So basically, it's a simple place. Now you can also update your profile, right? You can also update your profile. Okay, you can add much more features, right, into this application, but I think we can restrict to this, right? I think we have built enough features, right? And later on we will also add few more features, don't worry about it. But for now, for the starting, to start the project, I think these many features are enough, isn't it? Right? You can create your account, you can create an account, you can log in, you can update your profile, then you see a feed page, right? Then you can send a connection request, see the matches, right? See the request you have sent or you have received, right? So let us build this kind of features, right? And let us build the application in this much capacity, and then we can increase it and expand it to further things, right? Maybe you want to report somebody's profile, or maybe you want to block somebody's profile, or maybe or you want to do a phone number validation on, right? Basically, you take a phone number and then it sends you an OTP and all that stuff. We can build those features later on, but for now, let us just stick to these small features. You know, the beauty about this project is that you can expand it to huge, enormous levels, right? You can take this application to a very big scale, right? Very big level. That is why I am showing you everything, that how you can build it from scratch, okay? Suppose we just have to build these features first of all. Let's just start building it. So these are the product requirements which basically your product manager should have given you. But because we don't have a product manager, so we are the product managers, we have decided these features, that we have to build these features in our app. Okay, got it? Now, generally what happens now, the product manager also works with the designers, right? Design team, to design the UI mocks. So basically how your application will look like, right? Basically, suppose if there is a page of creating an account or a sign up page. So how will your sign up page look like? What kind of card would be there? What fields would be there, right? Suppose if you are updating your profile, what kind of information you take, right? Suppose if there is a feed page, so how the experience should be, whether it should be left swipe or right swipe, or whether there should be buttons and everything, right? Those are present in UI mocks. Right? So we don't have a designer, but we will assume, and as we create the application, we will build the UI according to us, okay? But I am telling you the full-fledged process, that how it happens inside the company, because I don't want to miss on anything. I want to follow a good process, the waterfall model, right, to build our product. So we have decided these features. Now, once the features are decided, now the role of tech team comes into picture, right? Now, once these features have been decided, now engineering team role comes into picture. Now the engineering manager, the tech lead, and all of these people will read these requirements, and then they will try to figure out that, okay, they will try to develop a high level design of this project. Right? Basically, what happens in a high level design is they will think about what kind of microservices you will build, right? What kind of security practices you will use, how will the user authenticate, how will the database be, what database will be used, how you will design the database, how you will design the APIs, and all of it, right? All the engineering planning is done. Okay, so for now, we will do a rough level engineering planning, right? We already know a lot of stuff. Okay, so let's just quickly do kind of like some engineering planning, right? Let's call this as tech planning or engineering planning. Tech planning. Okay, so tech planning means we will create two microservices. We have decided this microservices, right? Microservices, one will be front end and the other would be back end, right? And right now we are focusing upon mainly back end, right? We will talk about front end at later point of time in some other episode, right? But right now we are just focusing upon backend. Now once we have decided the tech stack, right? We have decided that we are going to use Node.js. In database we are going to use MongoDB, right? And then in front end we are going to use React, right? So all these decisions are made at this level when you are starting a new project, right? You also make decisions like whether we have to implement caching, how the security practices should be. So I'm not going and diving deep into the full-fledged planning, right? But I'm telling you the process that this planning is done at this stage, right? So the senior engineers, the tech leads, they decide what security practices will be followed, who can access it, and how the tech stack would look like, how the microservices will connect to each other, and all those stuff, right? Later on, we move on to, once this planning is done. So suppose it is decided that, okay, we are going to build a backend project and we have a Node.js running, and then we will have MongoDB as our database. So once all these things are decided, then basically the backend team comes into picture. Okay, the SDEs, the SDE1, SDE2, and all these technical engineers, right? The software engineers come into picture, and then they start building up things. They will start building up things, but they will not start writing codes first of all. Why? Because before writing code, they will do a LLD, right? What do you mean by LLD? Right? Have you heard of it? Now, you might be thinking, Akshay, this is a very tedious process. Why people are following it? But trust me, once you will see it, right? Once we start building the project, if your planning is very good, right? If you have put a lot of effort in planning, writing code becomes very easy. Mark my words right now. If you spend a lot of time in planning, if your planning is perfect, then writing code is very, very easy. If your planning is good, writing code is very, very easy. You don't have to refactor your code again and again. If your planning is not good, then you will have to refactor your code again and again, and it will be a mess, right? So do good planning. And in planning, you decide the HLD, you decide the LLD, and you do a lot of planning, right? So that is why I am showing you. I am not doing full-fledged thing, but I am showing you the right process of building a project. In your college, if you are building a project, then first of all, focus on planning, then write any code. What generally happens is college students, suppose if they have to build Dev Tinder, they will just start a new project and then they will start writing NPM in it. No. You don't have to do that. First of all, do proper planning. Now in LLD, once you do it, right, when the technical team or the backend microservice is being built, now the first important thing is what? The first important thing is database, and the second important thing is API design. Got it? The first important thing is database, DB design, right? And the second important thing is API design, or you can say API contracts, or you basically, you create and document the APIs, right? What all APIs will be needed for all these features, right? So let's just start doing it slowly. Hope you are enjoying this process, or hope you are understanding it. I know this can be a little complicated for some junior engineers or some college students who are already studying in college, right? These can be something complicated, but I'm trying to make it as simple as possible for you. Okay, I'm not even diving deep into the process or theory, and I'm not even ignoring these things, right? Because I feel planning is very, very important. right? Whatever project you make, planning is super important. And you will understand the, importance of planning. Just wait for a while. When you do DB design, right? When you do DB design, basically you kind of think about, suppose if you are using MongoDB. So in MongoDB, you have collections, you have documents, right? In SQL, you have your database. Inside database, you have your tables and rows. But in Mongo, we have collection and documents, right? So now over here in DB design, we will think about all the collections that we will need to store all the data of our application. So for all the features we have discussed, think about the collections that we would need. Where and how we will store the data is the part of DB design. How we will store the data, right? So first of all, it is very, very obvious. Don't worry if you are not able to understand this, but it is very, very obvious that we will need a table, or I should not call it as table. If you are using Mongo, then use the word collection, right? So I will create a collection which is known as user collection. Okay, it's very simple, right? So suppose if, and why we create a collection, I will tell you also, right? So in our application, we know that we will have to create users, right? Once a user logs in, so you need to store that user information, right? What is the name of user? What is the email ID? What are the skills? What are the preferences? What is the age? What is the gender? And all that stuff you will have to create. So you will create in a separate collection that is a user collection. Isn't it? So what all things you will put in the user collection? In the user collection, it will have all the user information, right? The first name, the last name, right? And maybe the email ID, and then you will have your password, isn't it? So to log in, right? Or you can also have your maybe age, you can have your gender, you can have all the things, right? There can be so many things inside user that you can store. Okay, now let's go back to the feature requirement and see, do we really need some other collections also, right? So right now we see that create an account. So when we create an account, we will put the data into user collection. When we will log in, we will use the user collection to see and match the password, whether the password user has entered is the password that is stored in our DB, isn't it? Then we will see update your profile. So once we update the profile, we are again putting the data into the user collection. When we are having a feed page, right? Basically, what is a feed page? Feed page is basically giving you the data of other users. So again, we will need a user collection data over here. We will get all the profiles and we will show it to the user. Now, when I say send connection request, now this is another type of data, right? So let me tell you, if I have to send a connection request to other users, how will I store this kind of connection? How will I store this data? That user A has sent a connection request to user B. How will I store this data? Here comes the complex part, and a lot of students don't understand what we should do over here. So let me tell you, this is why, generally whenever you might, if you are a computer science student, if you had a database management system class, right? If you had a subject of database management system, you would have heard about relationship diagrams, right? So basically, you kind of make a relationship diagrams, and according to that, your database models are created, right? What are the different type of models that you need in your database, right? So you created. Now, this is not Namaste database. I am not diving deep into the internal concepts of database, but because otherwise it will become very, very huge. I am covering small portion of it, which is really required for you, right? Basically, otherwise database is a very big subject in itself, right? How you create those diagrams, how do you create relationships, when you should normalize the database, and so many things are there, right? How do you store the data is a very big concept in itself. But for this application, I will show you a very basic demo of how we do it, right? So see, user is an entity, right? We have a user, right? This is the user, and we can have multiple user, and between these users we have a relationship, isn't it? We have a relationship, and this is known as connection request. connection request. So whenever you have such type of a model, right, whenever you have such type of a model, and user can send connection request to a lot of other users, right, it's like a mix of things, right? So you will need to store this relationship information also, right? So you will need to store that, okay, if A is sending a connection request to B, so you will need to store this relationship information also. For that, you will need one more collection. You will need what? You will need one more another collection, and you will not do it inside the user. Why you will not do it inside the user? See, one basic theory is, think about a single responsibility principle. That what is this user model for, right? What is this user collection for, right? What is the use of this user collection? To store user data. That's it. It is not storing the relationships. It is just storing the user data. That, see, this user collection defines a user, that who this user is, what is their personal information. That is the role of user collection. It is not storing the data of their connections, right? Of their request, what all requests they have sent, and their relations between the other users. No, it's not. So we will create another connection, another collection, and let's call this as connection request or connections or whatsoever. Let's call this as connection connections, right? Is the word connections good, or let's call it as connection request? Yes, connection request, okay? Because connection request. Now, what will this connection request takes in? The connection request will take in few information, right? That who is sending that connection request, and to whom he is sending the connection request, and what is the status of that connection request, isn't it? Right? So what is that relationship? Suppose A has sent a connection request to B. So you will need to store this information, right? Who is sending? You will need to store this. Who is sending? And then whom the request is being sent, and then what is the status of this request? What is the status of this request? Now, it right. So basically, you can call this as connection request. You will have data of from, right? From user ID. So basically, you will have a user ID, right? So from user ID, and I will store to user ID, right? The request is sent to which user ID? Request is sent from user ID to user ID, and what is the status? So suppose if A is sending to B, so we will store A, B, and then we will store the status. What can be a status? Status can be pending, right? So suppose if the status is pending, A has sent to B, so now the status of this connection request is what? Pending, isn't it? Now if suppose B approves it, so it is approved or accepted, right? Connection request accepted. If the B rejects it, it is rejected. Got it? So these type of statuses you will store over here in the connection request. Got it? So even before you write a single piece of code, my dear friends, you have to define your models, you have to define your collections, you have to, if you are using a SQL, you have to define your tables, you should understand how the user model will be, how the connection request model will be, right? You should understand it properly. You have to think about all these things, right? And the more you will put efforts over here, the less you will have to put efforts in writing code. Think about this, and I'm telling you once again, right? This is a very, very important thing. And now, a lot of students ask me, Akshay, suppose if I put a lot of efforts into building the LLD and the design and DB and everything, so can I change it later? And is it okay if I realize later that, okay, I have made some mistake? See, let me tell you, it's a very simple answer. You can make changes to your database anytime, right? It's okay to make changes in database, and no design is flawless, right? Basically, all the designs that are created in the world have flaws, right? The design which I will create while building this application will also have some flaws. Suppose if some other engineer is building the same project, they will have a different way of designing the database. They can have a different way of creating the APIs. And that is the beauty of software engineering, isn't it? There is no one right answer. There is no one right design. And that is the reason the design rounds, right? The system design rounds are very subjective, because the interviewer might be expecting something else and the candidate is telling something else. So that is why the design rounds are very complicated, and you just cannot, right? It's very complicated to understand, right? Because every engineer have their own ways of designing things, and a lot of things comes with experience. If you are junior, if you are starting your career, if you are early engineers, right, you will take a lot of time to understand that how you design database, how you design APIs, all these things. Basically, senior engineers are the one who write these design documents and take approval from architects, and that is when a project is built. If you are a junior engineer, you are not good at DB design, that's okay. Never have never undermine yourself, never feel that, okay, you don't know enough. I want to motivate you also, and I also want to console you that, okay, if you are not able to design the database properly in one go, that's completely okay. It's okay. You can go write code and then you realize, oh my God, I should change this. Come back, change it. No issues. Right? But what I'm telling you, when you develop the project in big companies, so you are expected to change the design less, very less. And you know what? Let me tell you a real life example. If you are using SQL, then you will have to be even more conscious while you are creating these tables and schema of your database. Because schema changes in SQL is a very big pain. Very big pain. Schema changes in Mongo are still easier. Schema changes in MongoDB are still easier. Schema changes in SQL is a very big pain. The better you design, because if your application grows large and you have a lot of data, then it becomes very hard for you to change the schema. That is why planning is very important. I think with all the lecture that I have given, I would have convinced you that you should focus a lot upon LLD and designing your database, because database is very important. Even important than your code is your database, because data is the new oil, isn't it? Right? So focus a lot upon database, how you build it. And I am not even going into a lot of details because I don't want to scare you right in the front of it. But later on, we will think about other things. I will tell you a lot of other things, that how do you create indexes in your database? How can you optimize your queries? I can tell you small things here and there whenever it will come while building this application. Okay, so don't worry about it, but let's just move ahead now. Okay, so for now, we have decided that we will create two collections. First collection will be to store user information. That's it. Single responsibility, store user information. Right? The second thing is store the connection request. Right? Store the connection request. Now, let me also give you a quick reality check. Okay? If you can think about things, right? I'll give you a quick homework. Okay? Not a homework, basically a good exercise. So what is the exercise? Think about what all status can come over here. What different type of status can come over here. Think about it. Pause the video over here. Think about what all statuses can be there. Right? So this is the pending status. This pending status comes when A is sending to B. So A has sent a request. Now this request is in pending state. What else statuses can be, right? Take a moment, take a pause, and then come back again. Okay, so hope you would have thought already, and your answer would have been, let me tell you, that it would be pending, it would be accepted, or it would be rejected, right? Pending, accepted, rejected. But let me tell you, my dear friends, there can be multiple statuses that can be happen, right? That all depends on your project requirement. But let me just tell you the complexity, okay? That I want to change your thought process, that different people can think differently about database also, right? So this is what I want to change. That is why I am telling you all these things, right? Suppose if A is sending a connection request to B. So you said one status can be pending, right? And one status, suppose if it is pending. Now, one more status can be now B can accept or reject. Then the status from pending can move to accepted, isn't it? And otherwise, from pending, it can also move to rejected, isn't it? It can move to accepted, it can move to rejected, and it is pending. Can there be more statuses? Can there be more statuses? Yes, there should be one more status. If you would have read about the requirements properly, you would have a one more status. Why? Let us go back. Let me go to the tinder.com and show you one more thing, right? Basically, see, when we go to our feed page, okay, when we go to our feed page, now I can either right swipe or left swipe this profile, isn't it? So suppose if I left swipe this profile, right? Suppose if I say reject or ignore this profile. So how will I store that piece of information? We will have to store that piece of information also, isn't it? So suppose if A is sending a request to B, A can also choose to ignore B, isn't it? So, see, you open the Tinder dashboard and you saw a profile, you saw a card. Now the card can either right swipe or the card can either left swipe. So suppose if you are interested in the profile, you will send them a connection request, it goes to the pending state. But suppose if you're not interested in the profile, then it can go to the ignore, right? The status can be ignored also, right? Or you can call it as cancelled, or you can call it as ignored, or you can call it as rejected or whatsoever. But let's not use the same word rejected over here. Rejected means it can go to the rejected state only after pending state, right? You cannot reject it. Got it? So basically, now there can be 4 statuses. There can be multiple statuses also. Suppose there can be a status blocked. Suppose one person A want to block the other person B, right? There can be a status block also. Okay, let's create one more status, blocked, right? Suppose if A can block B or B can block A. Similarly, right, there can be a status blocked. But again, right, we don't have the requirement for having block feature because if we built the block status, then the database will become even more complex. But let's keep it simple and sweet. You see a profile, you right swipe it, it goes to the pending state. You left swipe it, it goes to the ignored state, right? So basically the connection is ignored, right? Basically the profile is ignored, or if it goes to the pending state. And from pending, it can either go to accepted state or it can go to rejected state, right? So these are the 4 statuses that we can have. Got it? So I think I have discussed enough on database, and we will keep continuing to discuss the database as we go ahead and as we start building the project. And let me tell you at this point of time only that there can be cases when we can come back over here and change our design. That's completely okay. We are humans, we can make mistakes. There can be mistakes in database design also, right? So don't think that you have to be 100% perfect while building it. But whenever you are starting a project, try to do a lot of homework right at this point of time before writing the code. Okay, that will help you a lot. This is the tip I would like to give you as a teacher, right, to you. Now, let's go ahead and let's move to the API design, my dear friends. API design, right? So what is the API design? And we are going to use REST APIs. So a lot of people who don't know about REST APIs, I would suggest you to go and read about REST APIs, right? I'll tell you, suppose if a service, if you don't know about REST APIs, just pause the video over here, go to the internet, read 4 or 5 articles about REST API and then come back. Right? So suppose, and I will give you a brief idea over here, but if you don't know anything about it, then it might be a little complicated for you, right? Go research about it and come back once again. But let me give you a quick idea. So the REST API means, suppose if you have a microservice, if you have a front end and you have a backend application, right? So let me draw and show it to you. Okay. So you have a front end application and you have a backend application. So how do front-end application communicate with back-end application? How, right? So it communicates, see, front-end application knows the email ID and the password. So it will call the API of backend, right? It will have a login API, right? Login API, and in this login API, you will send an email ID and password. This login API basically will go and talk to the database and see whether the password and email ID exists in the database or not. And this login API will then return the response, right? So basically a request to API will be made, request, and API is what? This login is the API, right? So the request is made with this data. This is the data. The request will be made and then the login will send the response. Now the response can be success, the response can be failed according to the email ID and passwords which we have sent, right? So we will create REST APIs. So REST APIs is kind of like a way of creating APIs, okay? So that is what we are going to use, and that's a standard way of creating APIs. So let's think about what kind of APIs can be there, right? So there can be multiple types of REST APIs. So what are the different type of REST APIs? There are GET APIs to get the data from the database. There are POST APIs. POST APIs means I want to put some data into the database. So for that you need a POST API. So basically, suppose if you want to send some data to one service, from one service to another service, you will use POST API. So let me just tell you, this is one service, another service. So GET API is used to get the data from the service. POST API is used to push the data or send the data, right? Put API is used to update the data, right? Put API is used to update the data. There is one more API, patch API, right? So patch API, this is also used to update the data. There is a subtle difference between put and patch. I will tell you in a while. And there is one more method which is known as delete. This delete API is used to delete the data. Got it? There are different type of REST APIs: get the data, post the data, put, patch, delete, right? These are standards, right? Which are there, and we will be creating different types of APIs using different type of method. All these get, post, put, patch, delete, these are known as HTTP methods, right? HTTP methods. You know, right? What is HTTP? I talked about HTTP a lot in the season 1. Right? So HTTP protocol. So these are get, post, put, patch, delete, and all these APIs are of one of these types. So okay. So when I say I am creating a get API, so that means I am creating a API which is used to fetch the information. I am creating a post API. That means I want to send some send some data to the server and want to store it to the database. If we have a delete API, that means I am using that API to delete, right? Delete something to the server, right? See, so we will use it. There is a subtle difference between put and patch, or maybe I will not tell you. Okay, go and just explore it yourself, right? And maybe I will give you as a homework. Can I give you as a homework, or should I tell you right away? Okay, so let me give you as a homework, and maybe when I will be creating a patch API later on in the course, I will explain you the difference between put and patch. Let's keep it for that moment, but I would request you to take it up as a homework. Pause this video right now, and you should know the difference between all of these types of HTTP method and why they are used, right? And what, especially, this is a very famous interview question also, what is the difference between put and patch? Put and patch. Got it? So I am having a urge as a teacher to tell you the difference between put and patch right now, but I want to restrict myself and not tell you as of now. I want you to go and explore it yourself, research it, and later on in further episodes when I will create a patch API, I will tell you the difference between put and patch. Cool. So these are different methods. Now let's go on to discussing the APIs. Okay, what all APIs will we need? What all APIs will we need, right? What all APIs will we need to build all these features, right? So let us discuss the APIs. So the first important API can be sign up API, isn't it? Sign up API. And what can be sign up API? It will be a post API, right? Post API, sign up, right? And then there can be another API, post API, that can be a login API, isn't it? Then there can be a get API, which I can think of, which can get your profile, right? You can get the data of your profile, isn't it? You want to create your profile, right? And when you want to update your profile, that API can be post, and the name of API can be the same. Okay, so see, there are different ways of creating APIs. In some companies, you will find the APIs like slash get profile, slash update profile, right? They name it like this. And in some companies, they follow a good nomenclature that the name of the API will be same, profile, right? But according to the method, the job of the API is different, right? So if you say get profile, get slash profile, so it will get the data of the profile. Post slash profile, it will send the data to the profile, right? So similarly, you can write different kind of controllers later on. I will show you. So don't worry if you find the name as same, these two APIs are not same, right? So basically the HTTP method plus this URL will make a API, right? Basically HTTP method plus this URL request method, request URL, that will make collectively a request, right? Request or API. So don't worry about it. So this is post profile. Now suppose if you want to update the profile, so you will create a patch, right? You can create a patch profile also. And generally, these operations are known as CRUD operations, right? CRUD operations. I am just telling you because it is coming to my mind. It is known as create, read, update, delete. So you want to create a user, you want to read a user, that means get. You want to create a user, that means post. You want to update a user, that means patch. Suppose I want to delete my profile, so I can have a delete slash profile, right? Delete profile. Now I can have multiple more methods, right? So now the more APIs can be there. Suppose if I want to send a connection request, right? How will I send a connection request? So I will have to post. It will again be of type post because I am posting some data. I am just sending some data, right? Whether I want to accept the request or I want to ignore the profile or I want to accept the profile, basically this page, right? So if I go over here, I would need a API which will be used to accept or reject, right? Accept or reject, right? I will need it, right? I will need a API. So let us make that API and let's call it as send request, right? Send request, and I can either ignore the request, right? I can either ignore the request or basically send the request, right? I can show interested, right? Or I can just ignore it. I'm interested in the profile or I want to ignore the profile, right? Now there can be one more API to, suppose if you receive a request, then I want to basically review request, right? Suppose if I want to review my pending request. Suppose if somebody is sending me requests, right? So I want to review those requests. So I can either accept or I can reject, right? This is what I can do. If I have got some request, so I can have a request, a review request. Now I can also want to see all the connection requests which I have got, right? I want to create a UI where I want to see all the requests that I have got, right? So basically I want to create a get, and then I want all my requests to be, right? All the requests that I have got, right? If somebody has sent me the request, I want to see all those requests, right? So I can have a get request API. And there can also be one more API to get the connections. Suppose I want to get the profile of all the people whom I am connected with. Basically, what do you mean by connection? When I have sent a request and somebody has accepted it, or somebody have sent a request, I have accepted it. So I want the profiles of all my connections, right? So get connections. Let's call this as connections. So there can be multiple APIs for multiple features, but I think for now, these are good enough APIs. Are these good enough APIs or not? Right? There can be multiple profiles, right? Suppose if there is a profile to report a profile, right? Report a user. Suppose if you saw somebody who is, this profile is looking fake. Or if suppose this person is trying to mimic Elon Musk, right? I want to report this profile. So there should be a way to report this profile also, right? And there can be multiple things that we can do. But for now, let us just restrict ourselves to this much. Got it? So I think enough for this video. But see, the whole purpose of this episode of this video was to tell you the importance of planning. Now, when we already know our DB design and we already know our APIs, right? Writing code will become easier for me and for all of us, because you are also going to write code. And let me tell you, my dear friends, from the next episode itself, we will start writing code. We will start building our application. We will create our database. We will put data into the database. Don't worry, the time is come. The time has come that we can start writing the code, and from the next episode we will write. But with this episode, I wanted to tell you the importance of planning and the process what is followed in the companies. And this process is very, very important, and a lot of college students or people who make personal projects never follow this process. And in a lot of companies also, whenever a new project has to be created, engineering team also does not follow this process. But following this process will make your life easy. This is what I wanted to tell you as a teacher. I want to give you the best knowledge. And I have seen the process in big companies. I have worked for startups. I have worked for big companies. Right? I have worked in Uber. I have worked in Paytm. I have worked in small startups. And now I am also working on my own startup, right? On my own namastedev.com team. Here also we follow the same process. In our company right now, we follow the same process. Whenever we have to build a new feature, it goes through the whole cycle. First of all, we discuss it, then we think about the design, then we think about database, then we think about APIs, and then we actually write code for it. That's how things are built. And if you follow this process, your life will be easy. Okay, so let us take a quick recap before we end this for all the people who are new, right? So we discussed the features. We are going to create an account, login feature, update our profile, feed page, send connection request, see our message, see request that we have sent, received, and then update your profile, right? According to that, we have also done a high level kind of a planning, not full-fledged high level planning, but basic, right? That we will create 2 microservices, what tech stack we will use, what will be the security methods. So basically for security, we will be using a JWT token. Don't worry, I will make the auth and everything. I will explain you everything. Don't worry about it. How do you log in a user? How do you store the password? How do you encrypt it? How do you decrypt it? How do you check for validation and everything? Don't worry about it. Everything we will talk about, right? Don't you worry about everything, right? And then we talk about LLD. That we have a user, we have connection request, we have first name, last name, email ID, password, age, gender, and a lot of things, right? Let me also tell you, my dear friends, when we are doing this DB design, we go to that level and we talk about these things also in the design that, okay, if it is a first name, this should be a string and it should have the minimum length of 4, maximum length of 50. All these things are decided right now in DB design only. But for now, I am keeping it simple. I don't want to I don't want to spend a lot of time into this. Otherwise, you will get bored. I want to go and move to code as soon as possible. But I want to tell you the right process that, okay, this is the place where you also decide what will be the data types of all these things, right? The data type should be string over here. How will you store the password? What should be the age should be a number. Then what should be the values in the gender, right? How will you store all these things, right? All these things are defined, even the types, data types, right? So this will be a id, this will be a enum. All these things are decided over here only. But don't worry, if we don't decide here, I will talk about them later on. But I wanted to keep it simple, yet I wanted to cover everything, right? We have also seen that what all states can be there. There can be 4 type of statuses. If A is sending a request to B, if A is interested in B's profile, it will be in pending. If A is not interested, it will be ignored. If B accepts, so accepted. If B rejects, so rejected, right? Similarly, now we talked about API design, right? We got to see about the different HTTP methods. I have also asked you the difference between put and post. Take it up as your homework, right? And then we also have a API list, right? These are the APIs which we have thought of right now. Maybe later on we will change the request, right? We might build all of them, we might build some of them, but these are the requests which are coming to my mind right now, right? So I want to put all of them down. That's all in this video, my dear friends. In the next video, I will see you in the code and we will write some code and we will start building the application. But I have just one request. Please, please, please share a word about Namaste Node to your friends, to your family, to all your social media network. Write a post about all your learnings. Whatever you have learned in this episode, write it up on a social media post, right? On LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Instagram, wherever you wish to post, right? And do tag me if you do that. And please, please, please share a word about Namaste Dev if you are liking about our courses, right? If you are liking Namaste Node, share about it to your friends, family, and everyone. Help us reach more people and it will be a great help to us. I want to reach as many students as possible, and it's a very honor for me to teach you and reach more people and making the dev community better. Okay, so thank you so much for watching this video. See you in the next video and we will write the actual code and we will start building the application. Bye-bye for now.